What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Today's episode of the podcast, we are bringing you the long lost top 10 from last summer's NBA top 30 countdown. Every year, we have panelists on the pod to vote on who the top 30 players in the NBA are. And then we do a 3-pod series during the summer where we break down that list. Last summer, when we got to the top 10, unfortunately, my son had a medical emergency on the day that we were supposed to record. So we never got to record the top 10 pod. And for anybody concerned, Maddox was obviously okay. Everything's great. He's doing fantastic. And he turns 3 in a month, which is insane that it's gone by that fast. But he's doing fantastic and he's an awesome little guy. But Matt and I always joked about this podcast and said it was the lost podcast because we never got to our top 10. And we joked all throughout football season on this podcast that we would just randomly drop a top 10 players in the NBA pod. We've talked repeatedly about what was the best time to do it and decided that that is now, while we're doing a couple NBA podcasts before March Madness and before NFL free agency. So we're going to have Matt on. We're going to talk about the top 10 players in the NBA as voted on by me, Matt, and our panelist from this past summer. A lot has changed since then. So we might clown the list a little bit, talk about what has changed and where some of these guys are now and where they're going to be on our next list. So I think we're in for a really fun pod. The top 10 pod is always a fun one in the moment, but now that it's aged, 8 months, 7 months since last July, now that this list has aged and so many things have changed, I think we're in for some really fun conversations. But before we get started, just a reminder, you can reach out to us, fouledOutSports@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys listening. We love to hear from you. We have this week's NBA pod. We're going to do an NBA pod next week. And then the week of March 10th, we are going to do an NBA free agency pod after the first couple of days of free agency. And then we're going to jump into March Madness. So let us know what you want your NFL team to do in free agency, who you want them to sign, who you want them to trade for. I know I am really, really excited about what the Patriots are about to do. Fingers crossed that it actually goes well. But hit us up. You won't get spam or a newsletter or anything like that. You just get me responding to your emails. Love to talk to you guys about whatever is on your mind in the wide world of sports. But for now, let's grab Matt and let's talk about this past summer's top 10 players in the NBA. It's going to be a fun pod. Let's go. All right, Matt is here. Kind of, because I can't see him. So I'm recording this sitting here like staring at a blank box on my computer. But I can hear Matt. So Matt, how are you doing, buddy?
That's what you get for all the box jokes a few
The
weeks ago.
I honestly, when the black box popped up, I thought it was a virtual background, and I was like, I don't get it. But maybe it'll change. Um,
Yeah.
so I mentioned in the opening to the pod that today Matt and I are talking about the long lost top 10 from last summer's NBA top 30. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody how this works because every year we do the top 30 and every year we get emails or Twitter messages or wherever that give me shit about my top 30 list. And I want to remind everybody that this is not just my top 30 list. We have Matt, Clint, and Devin and myself all submit our top 30 list individually. And then there is a weighted average that is done to provide the consensus top 30 list, which is what we break down on the pod. So when I mention who player number 10 is, I do not want emails and text messages saying, I cannot believe you think he's the 10th best player in the NBA, because I did not rank him there. Other people ranked him other places that landed him at 10 on the consensus list. To remind everybody, because it's been 7 months since we did 11 through 30. So going from 30 down to 11 real quick. Trey Young, Paulo Banchero, Paul George, who will not make this list next year, Zion, Kawhi, Kyrie, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, Damian Lillard, Sabonis, Bam, Fox, Halliburton, LeBron, Embiid, Wembanyama, Jimmy Butler, Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards was number 11. And I remember at the time, we all thought it was crazy that Ant was number 11 because Devin had him at 6, you had him at 6, and I had him at 8 at the time. And Clint had Anthony Edwards at 27. So that's where we left this list off with a conversation about why Clint had Ant at 27. And it was pretty colorful and pretty entertaining. And the last 7 months have only added to the point that Clint made as far as some of the off court antics and some of the things he does on it. So, if you guys want to listen to players 30 through 11 or 11 through 30, however we want to look at that, the pods were posted back in July of this past year. So it's been quite a bit. But Matt and I are going to focus on this long lost top 10 to round this thing out. And I think that we're going to have some fun conversations because things have changed quite a bit in the last 7 months. So without further ado, player number 10 on the consensus top 30 list is Celtics forward Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown is a super hard player to place on a list like this.
He is.
Because if I just asked you straight up, is Jaylen Brown one of the 15 most talented players in the NBA? What would you say?
Maybe. Like he's probably fringe there this way. He is very talented. But there's also I mean, if we just talk about the last section that we did, there's a ton of talented guys there too. I don't know that he's solidly in the top 15.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm like, he's not one of the 15 best basketball players in the NBA, but also he was just the conference finals MVP and the finals MVP for the team that just won the championship.
Yeah.
And anybody else that we're going to talk about today, if they won the championship and were conference finals and finals MVP on the way there, we would at least have them top 5.
Yeah.
I think no doubt. So it's like, it's almost disrespectful in a way where I don't feel like Jaylen Brown is actually one of the 10 best players in the NBA. But if anybody else had done what he just did in last year's playoffs, we would be pounding the table to have them way higher than this.
I mean, he checks a lot of boxes. Like he can score, he can shoot, he can play pretty good defense. He can rebound. Really, the only thing that's missing is the ability to dribble the ball. Like
something you would think would be a prerequisite for playing basketball at a high level. It's such a weird spot too, because there's so many guys that we had below him on this list where I'm like, okay, if Anthony Edwards or Jimmy Butler or, some of these other guys were in his position on this Celtics team, is the team any worse? Or are they better? Or what's the difference? Like, could they have done what he did? But the problem is that he was the one that was in that position and he did what he did. So those other guys didn't. So that's kind of why he's here.
I want to ask you a question, and I think this is not meant to throw shade at where the rankings ended up, but more to show just how much can change over half of a season. If you could go back and do the rankings now, would you have him or Cade ranked higher?
I would still have Jaylen Brown ranked higher because I have not seen Cade play in the playoffs
in the
yet.
playoffs, which is
Yeah.
fair.
And this is why we vote when
Yeah.
we vote is because
Hmm.
like we just saw what we needed to see because honestly regular season basketball is all well and good, but
Yeah.
when I'm voting on something like this, regular season doesn't mean a whole lot to me.
Yeah.
And like Cade right now, I think is making a case to be in the top 15 on this list this year with his
Yeah.
regular season performance. And if he goes into the playoffs and they have a good series against, like, assuming they're the 6 seed or the 5 seed or something, and they
Hmm.
play like the Bucks or the
Yeah.
Knicks, and Cade has a good series, then he'll definitely be in the top 15 and maybe push a little bit higher based on what he's done.
Yeah.
But I just saw this guy be finals MVP and win a
Yep.
championship. And that's why, like, that's what I said.
Hmm.
That's why he is where he is, even if I believe Cade's a better basketball player than he is.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause when I was sitting there thinking about it, like realistically, I'm probably putting both of them somewhere between like 17 and 13, right? Like there probably wouldn't be a huge gap between them. But then like you look at where we landed, and I was the only one who even put Cade in my top 30. He ended up being an honorable mention, and Jaylen Brown is number 10.
Yeah.
So
Well,
like
that's the thing though, is that things change so much now that
it's so dramatically.
we're into another
Yeah.
season.
Yep.
But also that's why we
Yeah.
don't vote on it after the All-Star break now, because who knows what's gonna happen. Um, can I say one thing about Cade before we go to player 9 though?
Yeah.
Is Cade has now reached I don't know what plateau or what level this is, but he's now gone to the level where when I check scores of basketball games, my app, when you click on any basketball game, it tells you who the top performer for each team is.
Hmm.
And any single time I click on a Pistons game, no matter what time it is during the game, their top performer is always Cade Cunningham.
Yeah.
It's like, 5 minutes into the game or 50 minutes into the game. It is like always Cade now. And there's a very limited amount of basketball players where that's actually the case. It's like
Yeah.
Jokic, Luca before he left, or before he got traded,
Hmm.
SGA, like, and that's kind of it. And then it's Cade like every single time. So I think it's not only him doing what he's doing, but also with the supporting cast that he's doing it with.
Yeah.
But I still need to see it when it matters before I'm ready
Hmm.
to be like, yeah, he's higher on my list of guys than Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But yeah, I wanted to kind of do that little thought experiment because I think it illustrates just how rapidly everything can shift.
Yeah. Yeah. You were the only one who voted for Cade, and you only voted for him 30th. So he only got 1 point
Yeah.
in this whole thing. So kind of outlines where we were versus where we are now. Players number 9 and 8, I want to talk about together, not only because they tied in their consensus voting points here, but also because they're on the same team. And talk about how things have changed in the last 7 months. It is Devin Booker and Kevin Durant tied for 9 and 8 on a Suns team that is absolutely fucking abysmal. Now,
Yeah.
they're 27 and 30, currently holding down the 11 spot in the West. And I don't know how much Suns basketball you've watched this year, but they are just absolutely the most miserable, boring team to watch in the entire league. They're not only horrifically bad, but they're all miserable and they hate each other. And this Kevin Durant experiment in Phoenix has been an absolutely unmitigated disaster, culminating in this season. And like, Cade Cunningham, I think, is going to be the biggest mover upwards on the list this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, going from being an honorable mention to probably being like a top 15 guy, maybe even a little bit better than that. I'm starting to think that Kevin Durant is going to be the biggest mover in the opposite direction. Like he's absolutely still a walking bucket and he's
Hmm.
getting his numbers offensively, but every single effort statistic is down.
Yeah.
And he's miserable. And I think it's going to be a really bad end of the season. Like right now, he has a defensive rating of 117, which is by far the highest of his entire career.
Yeah.
And rebounding is down. Like he's not even trying on defense. And he's doing that like pouty thing where the other team is shooting free throws and he's standing off on like all the way in the other corner of the court by himself. The lack of team success combined with how fucking miserable he's been and how miserable he's making everybody else.
Hmm.
I think he's going definitely outside of the top 10. I think he's going to be closer to 20 than he would have been at any other point in his entire career.
He's been like what a top 10 player in the NBA since like year 3 or 4 in the league. So
Yeah, his third year, he was the runner up for MVP and he was all NBA first team
yeah.
when he was 21 years old. He's 36 now and he's probably been a top 10 guy every single year since then, except the year he got hurt.
Yeah.
Can I give you my not so bold prediction for Kevin Durant?
Sure.
Clint's not going to put him on the list at all this year. This is the Anthony Edwards special of the year next year is that Clint completely leaves him off or ranks him like extremely low and we do another
29th.
yeah,
Yeah.
we do like another Clint soliloquy about this guy not giving a shit and not putting in any effort and fuck this guy. And I'm just like, I'm here for it because if anybody deserves it, it's been Kevin Durant. But
Yeah.
I think the Suns are interesting and like, to Devin Booker's credit, he it's just kind of been Devin Booker again this season. A lot of his
Hmm.
yeah, some of his like shooting metrics and stuff are down, but he's been like the one somewhat bright spot on this team, even though it's hard to say that there are any with how awful they've been, especially lately where they're 2-8 in their last 10. But,
Yeah.
this is a team that made the NBA finals not that long ago.
Hmm.
And looked like at one point that they were going to be winning that NBA finals until Giannis went like Super
Giannis.
Saiyan. Yeah. But they reached like I think one of the hardest things in sports. I don't know. What do you think is harder to build up the team to make it competitive or to figure out how you're going to keep that team competitive?
I would say keeping it competitive is the harder thing. Um, when you're at the bottom, like there's so many different ways to get better. Like, but when you're at the top, you're trying to tinker with a finely tuned engine to get just that little bit extra to put you over the top. And any changes that you're making could go either direction. It's the thing that has very much separated the best front offices from the ones that are just kind of mid.
I agree with that. This team is so interesting because they go to the NBA finals. They come back the next year and win like 64 games, I think it
Mhm.
was. And they're the one seed. And then in the second round of the playoffs, they had like COVID going around the locker room and they get Luka and Dallas Mavericks
Mhm.
take them out and Luka just has this amazing series. And then ownership's like, okay, fuck it. We're blowing this whole thing up. We got to get rid of we got to find a way to get rid of Chris Paul. We're going to do this Kevin Durant trade. The new
Hmm.
owner comes in and he's like, I'm the one that's going to take this team over the top and finally win a championship here. And they just throw like everything they have at this Kevin Durant trade,
Yeah.
where they're like, it's, Cam Johnson and uh Miles Bridges and the picks and this and that. Like they just kept throwing stuff in until the Kevin Durant
Mikal
trade got done.
Bridges.
Yeah, not Miles Bridges. Um,
You always mix those two up.
I just always say the wrong name, but you know what I mean. Noodles Bridges.
Yes.
At some point, it's like, okay, do we have to put all of our picks and Noodles Bridges and Cam Johnson in the
Hmm.
trade? Like we couldn't hold on to anything?
Okay, but hear me out. What if we did that and then we found a way to trade for God, what's his name from
Bradley
Washington?
Bradley
Yeah,
Beal.
Bradley Beal.
Yeah. It's like
I'll wash not even like the good version of Bradley Beal, the washed up version of him.
the problem with this team, well, really the problem with the front office is that they just keep being like, this guy's the problem. This guy's the problem.
Yeah.
Like they're like, we need to trade for Durant. And they get Durant. And then they're like, you know who the problem is? It's Chris Paul. And so they fucking trade him for Bradley Beal, which is just like phenomenally atrocious, especially because that culminated in the fact like this past trade deadline. They're like trying to trade for Jimmy Butler, and Bradley Beal has a fucking no trade clause in his contract. He has one of the worst contracts in the NBA financially, and it has a full no trade
Yeah.
clause in it.
Yep.
And they're like, hey, we got this deal for Jimmy Butler in place. We just got to move Beal. And Beal's like, no, I'm not moving. Screw you guys.
Yeah.
So they're like, Chris Paul's the problem. And then it's still not working out. And they're like, you know who the problem is? DeAndre Ayton. We hate that guy. And so they like trade DeAndre, like this insane Portland trade that we've talked about a billion times, where
Yep.
Portland is like, hey, we're going to trade away Damian Lillard. And if we can have any asset in the entire NBA back, we want it to be DeAndre Ayton. And
Yeah.
the Suns are like, hell yeah, we hate this guy so much. So it's always
Which,
someone
in
else's
fairness,
fault.
that might be the one thing that Phoenix has gotten right.
I mean, they're not wrong there, but like, how about we look in the mirror and say the fact that we
Yeah.
literally traded the entire franchise for Kevin Durant is the problem,
Yeah.
and not like, oh, it's Chris Paul and it's DeAndre Ayton. And it's like, no, you had a
Yeah.
really good championship contending team
Yep.
that made the finals and then was the
Mhm.
one seed the following year. And that wasn't good enough for you. So you blew it up.
Yeah.
And I know Chris Paul was getting old, but how about we figure out a way to like get a real point guard in here and still have Booker, Bridges, and Cam Johnson?
Yeah.
We knew the Kevin
I
Durant thing
mean,
was a bad
and
idea when it happened.
that's the thing is like they didn't necessarily need someone who was like ready to step in as like a starting caliber point guard right away because they had Chris Paul. Like they could have gotten someone that they thought they could develop and learn from Chris Paul because even with Chris Paul out there in your starting lineup, he's still like your third offensive option between Booker and Noodles.
It's like, could we just go and get like TJ McConnell to be the backup point guard? Could we just not have
Yeah.
the campaign minutes in here where
Hmm.
we got to play like campaign 15 to 20 minutes a game in the playoffs? Maybe that's
Yeah.
the problem. Maybe it's not. I just bought a brand new basketball team and I want to make like a huge splash. And that the Phoenix Suns have like one of the darker futures of any NBA franchise,
Yeah.
except for the fact that they have Devin Booker, which would not shock me if Devin Booker demands a trade. Would not blame him. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I love that he has been representing. Uh, for quite some time now. Like if you see any of his pre-game, post-game fits, it's always, you know, Tigers, Lions shit. Like he definitely does not appear like he wouldn't mind coming back home. So,
Who who says no? Pistons get Devin Booker. Suns get Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and multiple first round picks. And probably you have to have some kind of
yeah,
salary filler in there too. But and you get to have Booker and Cade.
that's tough. That's so much to give up.
I know. I think this is the lesson from the Kevin Durant trade is like,
Yep.
do you actually do that? But then at the same time, it's hard
Yeah.
not to because you're getting Devin freaking Booker, who I don't know. Maybe you can get him cheaper if he demands a trade, but he's under contract until 28. He's got this year and
Yeah, got
three
Nico
more.
Harrison in there.
Yeah, perfect. Well, you guys can just have him. We want Tobias Harris in a second. It'll be fine. But yeah, looking at their contracts right now, they owe Kevin Durant 55 million next year. They're on the hook for Bradley Beal for 2 more years. They have Grayson Allen at 20 million a year for 3 more years. Like it is they're paying 214 million dollars for this team right now,
Yeah.
and that number goes up next season. So and they also tried to trade Kevin Durant without telling him. They tried to Luka him, and nobody wanted him. So, or not for the price they were asking.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's not great. That's why he's pissed off. Bradley Beal refuses to go anywhere, so everybody hates Bradley Beal, and the rest of this team kind of sucks. It's Grayson Allen, Rosa O'Neal, Cody Martin, Nick Richards. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're you're gonna have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and finish as a not even a play-in team. Speaking of all-time stupid trades, number 7 on our list is Anthony Davis, who was just part of an all-time stupid trade, getting traded from the Lakers to the Dallas Mavericks for Luka Doncic. I will say this for the Dallas Mavericks is that their fans got the full Anthony Davis experience in his one and only game,
Yep.
Dallas Mavericks
It
uniform.
only took 31 minutes.
But it was the full Anthony Davis
It
where
truly was.
he looked like the best player in the world in those 31 minutes. Like he was truly incredible in those 31 minutes
Yeah.
and then has a non-contact injury and we have not heard from him since.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was what 26.
26, 16, and 7
Yeah, with 3 blocks.
with 3 blocks.
It was just fucking dominating versus Houston and then the non-contact injury. And I think this is ultimately the thing with Davis is like when he's healthy and playing, he is absolutely one of the best players in the NBA.
Yep.
But the problem is the health and the playing. Like he was voted this high because he played 76 games last season. And in his 76 games, he was 25 points, 13 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals. Like incredible. So yeah, if he could be healthy, man, like he'll be up on this list. But he played 42 games for the Lakers this year, 1 for the Mavericks. And if we don't see him again this season, it's going to be tough to keep him in the top 10.
It is hard to look at how many games he has played in LA with LeBron and say that there is any hope that he turns the corner health-wise. Like,
I just, it's still the most amazing thing to me that the Dallas Mavericks are just like, yeah, Luke is not in great shape. We're worried about how his body's going to hold up over the next couple of years. We really wanted him to be an Iron Man like Kobe Bryant. So we traded him for Anthony Davis,
The
who's played
poster child for being the exact opposite of that.
absolutely incredible. He's played 70 plus games 3 times in his career.
Yeah.
One of them being last year, which is why he's this high. But before that, it was 56, 40, 36, 62, 56. So, yeah. Hey, can I just give a piece of advice to anybody who works for the Dallas Mavericks? Shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. They say new things every single day.
Yep.
Like, did you see the story today about um the somebody on the Dallas Mavericks, somebody from the front office was like, "Yeah, we really watched Luca in the finals get guarded full court by Jaylen Brown, and we were like, oh yeah, is this really our guy if he is struggling offensively against the Celtics like this?" And I'm just like, it seems like they're workshopping new excuses
Yeah.
all the like multiple times a week. It's a different excuse. It's a different reason that they traded him, and it just gets dumber and dumber. And I think maybe the most damning thing of all that they've said is that they didn't expect the backlash to be this bad. What did you expect? I would really love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings where they're like, yeah, it might not be great, but they'll get over it when they see Anthony Davis playing more than 50 games in a Mavericks uniform. What do you mean you didn't think it was going to be this bad? I Oh man, it just it's been weeks and we did the pod when it happened, and somehow I feel like it's gotten worse since it happened.
Yeah, because they won't shut their damn mouths.
They won't stop talking about it, and like we said, poor Anthony Davis, who Anthony Davis plays 31 minutes and then is going to miss the rest of the season probably.
Yeah.
And Dallas might miss the play-in now because they're kind of falling apart here, but in Anthony Davis's like NBA bio, what is the first line? Is it NBA champion in the bubble, or is it he was part of the Luka trade?
I think it's going to end up being part of the Luka trade,
I think so too.
especially because the NBA championship was the bubble year, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that kind of like iffy about how they feel about it. I mean, we said it at the time that the NBA put the league on pause, that no team benefited more from it than the Lakers.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people too that kind of were just like less invested in watching basketball that year. And it almost kind of doesn't necessarily get forgotten, but it just kind of like gets lost in the shuffle of it.
Honestly, I think his most impressive accomplishment, as weird as this sounds, is that one playoff series in what was it, 2018, when he was with New Orleans still, where he just like single-handedly completely obliterated the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it now, he was 33 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals per game
Yeah.
in that series. And I think that ultimately that ends up being Anthony Davis's legacy, is like he's a huge what if guy. Like if he could have just stayed healthy, what could he have been? Um, and then he was part of this Luka trade. That's how it goes down. Number 6 on the list. Back into the controversy here. Another Celtics forward Jason Tatum, who I think is like another really hard guy to place because he's like the opposite of his teammate Jaylen Brown. Where if you're like, is he one of the top 15 most talented guys in the NBA? I would be like, yeah, absolutely. But then his team just won a championship and he was not the most important guy on the team.
My thing with him is that I always feel like I'm getting like 80 cents on the dollar. I just don't feel like I'm getting the full experience out of him.
Can I tell you something that's going to make your opinion of him worse?
Go
And
ahead.
like basketball reference and football reference, they have like the nicknames of the players.
God.
And sometimes they just have like nicknames that absolutely make zero sense.
Yep.
His nicknames on basketball reference are J, like just the letter J, the anomaly, and Taco J. Who the fuck calls him Taco J?
I want to know exactly which four people out in the universe are calling him that.
I, it's like the Miles Bridges thing when we found out his name was Noodles. Noodles Bridges. Who is calling Jason Tatum Taco J? Except for me now, every single time that we talk about him for the rest of forever.
God.
Taco J. Yeah, we don't have to spend a lot of time on Tatum because it's kind of been beat to death where it's like he's he's extremely talented. And I agree with you that he just leaves me wanting more.
Yep.
Every single time I watch him play, I mean, I've watched a lot of Jason Tatum because the Celtics have made so many playoff runs
Hmm.
in the last however many years. And it's just there have been very few games where I'm like, that's the Jason Tatum that I want to see. Um, and it like
Yeah.
you think about like the what was it, 45 or 47 points that he had in Milwaukee that one year.
Yeah.
It's like that game. It's whatever the game six or the game seven was against the Philadelphia 76ers, where he had like 50 in game seven against them. Um, those are the games where I'm like, yes, like this is the guy.
Yeah.
This is who he should be. And I think that like he's just always going to be stuck in this like 6 to 10 range
Yeah.
because he is so goddamn talented, but doesn't play in a way that maximizes his talents, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really clear um when you see him in front of the media, when he has his very clearly uh scripted celebrations that he's trying to be someone that he's very clearly not. Um, and it's okay that he's not those people that he's trying to be, but it's that like inauthenticity that makes him even more maddening when we're not getting like the full effect of who he can be on the court.
Yeah, it's just like it's the same thing off the court that it is on the court, where there are so many reasons we should like Jason Tatum.
Hmm.
Like by all accounts, he's a good guy, good husband, good dad. Like he
Yep.
really, but it just feels like we're just getting this like 80% version of him where
Yeah.
he's trying to be Kobe or Kevin Garnett. Like they win the
Yeah.
championship and he like tried so hard to have an
Yeah.
iconic championship moment
Yeah.
where he's like, we did it. We did it. Like he's trying to be Kevin Garnett and then he's trying to be Kobe in the locker room and then he's trying to be blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
you think of all of the really truly iconic championship moments, they were all things that could not be faked.
Yeah.
They were things that could not be staged. It was like raw human emotion pouring out.
Hmm.
And for Jason, it's just like, I don't know, man. I feel like Jason should honestly be the guy we're talking about to be the new face of American basketball after LeBron and Curry are gone.
Yeah.
And just nobody likes him. And there's not a good reason to not like him. It's not like he was like arrested for domestic abuse or like, drugs or like
No,
he's never done anything wrong. It's just like,
he's also not giving us a reason to like him.
yeah, it's just, but like, that's honestly, it's like, why don't you like Jason Tatum? It's like, I just don't like him. It's like when you meet your friend's friend and they're like, what'd you think? And it's like, I don't know. And they're like, well, what do you mean? It's like, I just didn't like him. And I feel like he gets knocked in rankings like this because of that, but then also because it's the same thing on the court where it just leaves me wanting more. And I'm like, why are you not better? You
Yeah.
have all of the tools. You're goddamn Taco J.
Yeah.
You're Taco J. Come on, be better, Taco J. You know what? I will tell you that I came out of this segment liking Jason Tatum more. Because, like, come on,
Only because of Taco J.
Taco J. Player number 5 is the baby faced assassin, the human
Steph.
torch, Threesus. Who the fuck calls Steph Curry Threesus?
I was gonna say I don't like that one.
Yeah. Chef Curry and Steph. Chef Curry, I think. Human Torch. I guess it makes sense, but
It's pretty clearly those first two.
yeah. Um, I wanted to tell you this about Curry because I was watching the Warriors the other day. Now that they have Jimmy Butler, and I feel good about having Curry at 5 still. I think he struggled this year with the roster that's around him. And now that he has Jimmy Butler on his team, he's a little bit more free, playing a little bit better. Someone's taking the attention off of him. But even though Steph is not the player he used to be, he still has this quality that nobody else we've ever seen in NBA history has. Where I'm watching this game the other day, Draymond has the ball on the wing beyond the 3-point line, and Jimmy Butler goes and sets a pick for Steph. And Steph does this like L shape where he's diving towards the hoop and then at the last minute starts running out towards the corner. And it sucks in the entire defense to the point where Jimmy slips the screen and is wide open for a layup.
Yeah.
Like easiest bucket of Jimmy's life. And no one player has ever had the as you referred to it, the on-court gravity that Steph
Hmm.
Curry still has,
Yeah.
even at age 36. He still has it. And I think that is something you can't quantify in any type of statistic
Yeah.
that
I think
makes him deserve a spot on this list.
the only player that I've ever seen approach that gravitational force was like prime Dame.
Yeah, but it was still like
But it still wasn't the same effect.
Dame has always kind of been the diet version of Steph.
Yeah.
Like they do a lot of the same things really well, but Steph
Hmm.
is just like the 100% version and Dame is the 90 at his best.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, Dame's a little bit thicker. So, like, he kind of saw a little bit more contact, but no one, very few guys slither through a defense like Steph does. And, like, I think that is also part of why, like, his longevity has been better.
Yeah. He's just funny because in the play I just mentioned, it started with him diving towards the hoop and the
Hmm.
whole defense is like, oh shit. And it's like, that's when you think of Steph, that's not what you think of, but he does have a really good inside game as well.
Yeah.
But for him to have gravity diving towards the hoop and then also beyond the 3-point line is insane.
Yeah.
And I think the last 4 guys we're going to talk about, the top 4, are the if I have this guy on my team, I'm a championship contender guys.
Yeah.
Um, and also if you're like, hey, pick a player, you need to win a series, pick a player. That these top four guys are probably like the four guys that you're debating about picking.
Yeah.
But I still, even at age 36, if you told me I needed a guy to win one game,
Yeah.
not a whole series, but one game,
Just one game.
I'm still picking Steph.
Yeah.
I'm more in my, what, I'm 34 now. I've probably been watching sports seriously for like 20 years. In the 20 years that I have been like a serious sports fan, I am more afraid of Steph in a one game scenario than I am of any other athlete that I've ever watched.
I think the thing with Steph is I feel like you can be rolling into the fourth quarter down 30, and you're still sitting there thinking, we've got a shot at this because he can get so hot so quickly, because he has that gravitational effect, and because I don't know what it is, but it feels like when he gets hot, the guys around him get hot, and it just it becomes an avalanche. Like that
It,
was the thing about those Warriors teams is like you could be competitive with them for the majority of the game, but you knew there was going to be one point in the game where you just got hit with a barrage of threes and you had to somehow survive that.
yeah, the wave. I I think still like the Warriors, they haven't been that great this season. They've been a lot better
Mhm.
since getting Jimmy Butler, which like, yeah, like
Shocking.
acquiring Jimmy Butler is going to do that. Um, they're a play-in team right now, but I just think 100% they're going to be a team that when we come to the playoffs, you
Yeah.
should be like, God, I don't want to fucking play those guys.
No.
You have Jimmy and Steph on the same team,
Hmm.
and then you have to deal with Draymond's shenanigans too. And they're just like, they're going to be a lower seed, but like, if you're like Memphis or Denver or something, you're like, oh God, we got to play the Warriors. Like,
Yeah.
they're not going to be fun to play. But
No. No. I like he very clearly has lost a step, but like even just looking at these rankings, I'm like, I just don't know that I can justify moving him down.
yeah, it's like, well, who that we've talked about so far are you taking over him?
Yeah,
Like, still, at 36 years old. So,
yeah, it's
uh,
crazy.
I think these last four are top four. I still feel very good about where we have these guys ranked.
Yeah,
Even, as much as some things have changed, this has not. These are the top four players in the world.
yeah.
The only thing you could really debate here is order. I would still keep them in the order that we have them because that's the order that I voted on them.
Mhm.
I voted on. Um, I really wish we had Clint. we we need Clint because number four is Shea Gilgeous Alexander. I had Shea four, you had him four, Devin had him three, and Clint had him 10. And I would just really like to talk to Clint about why he thinks there are nine guys in the league who are better than Shea Gilgeous Alexander. I mean,
Uh, if we had tried, we probably could have got him on today.
yeah, we should have tried harder. If I knew this was coming, I probably would have. Yeah, I just I laid out my case for not necessarily believing that this team is a contender. Um, until I see more out of their
Hmm.
supporting players during the playoffs. That absolutely 0%, maybe even negative 10% of that case had to do with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
Um, Matt, for the season so far, offensive rating 128, defensive rating 105. This guy's fucking insane. 30.8 PER, second in the league. Most defensive win shares in the league right now, with Jalen Williams actually being number two. It's kind of that's a little scary. He's basically number two in almost every single advanced category, only behind spoiler alert, the number one guy in this list, Nikola Jokic. Um, and I think truly the thing with Shea is that the three guys in front of him either have championships or have been to an NBA championship. And we're like splitting hairs here, but I want to see Shea get more done before I move him ahead of some of these other guys on the list.
Just knowing who else is on this list. There's two guys who already have a ring, and there's a guy who's been to the finals,
And the
right?
guy ahead of him who does not have a ring was the same guy that beat his team last year.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So like, I mean, even if they get to the finals, it's pretty debatable as to like who you're putting where there. Like, if he gets a ring, okay, well then again, you're debating like which one of these guys that has one ring you're putting above the other two guys that like. So I fully foresee a future where uh it's these four guys just in various different orders in this spot for like a few years.
yeah, and honestly, right now, like the 2 through 3 spot, you could have these guys in any order, and I'm not going to fight you on it that hard.
Yeah,
The number one spot, I think, is like unequivocally the number one player in the world.
right
But
now, yeah.
yeah, we'll talk about him in a minute because he's somehow having his best season ever right now, which is fucking insanity. But yeah, I mean, Shea's amazing. It's just the thing is that the farthest he's been in the playoffs is the second round.
Yeah.
And I think we're in for some super fun playoff series of like, if it's OKC and the Lakers in the second round, it's LeBron and Luca versus Shea. And
Yeah.
this OKC team is like super fun. If it's like Nuggets, Thunder, you get a fun one. Like there's a lot of really
Hmm.
fun matchups I'm really looking forward to. And one of the things I'm looking forward to most is seeing if like Shea and the OKC Thunder can take that next step forward and be a title contender. No,
Yeah. I mean, like in fairness to Shea last year, and granted, like he certainly did not play poorly in the playoffs last year. Um,
he had like 32 points per game,
yeah,
37 and 6
yeah.
in the playoffs
Like
last year. So
like I'm on a cellular level, like he's basically replaced every cell in his body since
his
then.
brain has finally fully formed.
Yeah.
So, but number 3 on the list is Giannis Antetokounmpo. So you had Giannis 2 and Luca
Hmm.
3. Clint had Giannis 2 and Luca 3. Devin and I both had Luca 2, but Devin had Giannis 4 and Shea 3. So Luca took the number 2 spot. Spoiler alert. Um, Giannis number 3. I think for me, just between Luca and Giannis is just because they are both such amazing players.
Yeah.
Is on one hand, like Giannis has gotten it done. He has a ring. He has maybe the best closeout game in NBA Finals history. That game 6 against the Suns, where he had like 50 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And like Luka, we just saw him at least get there more recently, where he
Hmm.
he made it last year, and he I think twice now has kind of drug his team through the Western Conference.
Yeah.
One year losing in the Western Conference Finals to Steph and the Warriors, but in that same year he beat the one seeded Suns. And
Hmm.
then last year it was like same thing where it's like, oh, he gets hot. They win their first round series, they go on and upset the one seeded OKC Thunder. And then, this time he just gets the better of the other team coming in the Western Conference Finals. Honestly, like both these guys are fully capable of being the best player on a championship team.
Yeah.
I know Luka hasn't done it yet, but I have no doubt in my mind that he can. And I
You
honestly
you
like
know who does?
my dad. There's two
It,
people who don't believe Luka can win a
it,
championship. It's my dad and Nico Harrison.
I was gonna say the entirety apparently of the Dallas Mavericks organization.
My dad watched Luka in the finals against the Celtics last year, and he's like, "This is your Luka." He spit at me. He's like, "This is the man you love." Um, yeah, I I don't know, man. I can't say enough about the fucking Dallas Mavericks trade. It'll it'll never stop. It'll never stop. And people like my dad's like, don't talk about that trade again on the podcast. And I'm like, no, I will talk about it on every podcast from here until
It's
I die.
our podcast, damn it.
I'll talk about what I want to talk about. He he had his like first really good game for the Lakers the other day
Hmm.
after, he was coming in, brand new team, trying to like learn the offense and learn the role and learn how to play with LeBron. And the Lakers like smacked the Nuggets the other night, and Luka was awesome. And I was just like, yeah, the Dallas Mavericks did this.
Yep.
Whatever happens with the Lakers this season, um, to be honest, I like they are a championship contender, whether people want to admit that or not. That this just opened a window for LeBron to possibly get number five.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you have Luka Doncic on your roster and you make the playoffs, you are a contender for the championship.
Yeah, but the thing that's like especially scary about the Lakers is you always either have Luca, LeBron, or Luca and LeBron on the floor at the same time.
Yep.
And you're like, I know LeBron is like we already talked about LeBron, so we won't like do a whole expose on him here, but like he's still a very high level offensive player, even at 40, and he's still the smartest player in the league.
Yeah.
And just like always having one of those guys running your offense, or you have both of them on the court at the same time, surrounded by big switchable wings who can shoot with like Rui and Vanderbilt and Dorian Finney Smith and like guys like Austin Reeves and Gabe Vincent who can score, especially when you give them wide open shots all the time. This team's fucking dangerous. Like they are. I know people don't want to admit it because it's the Lakers, but it would not surprise me if the Lakers are in the finals this year.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, that is the reality of combining those two guys together, you know. Um, I think they have a lot of work cut out for them with the top teams in the West being who they are, but like is there a better scenario you would like to take on that challenge than having those two guys that are like walking triple double threats
Like
on
two
every single night?
supercomputers on the court at the
Yeah,
same time. Yeah.
like I just ugh,
It makes me so mad again that this happened. But also, I think the Lakers are just the most fascinating team in the NBA to watch. And like having that game the other night where having that game the other night, Luka goes 32, 10, and 7. LeBron goes 25, 9, and 5. And when you have two guys on your team that are going to combine for those type of numbers, yeah, you have a chance to win any game, any series. Like Austin Reeves has taken a step forward offensively. It makes me mad. And nothing that the Dallas Mavericks front office can say will make it any better. Again, just shut up. Just shut up. I'm going to say my one of my favorite things to say when athletes say something stupid. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to. Just shut up and enjoy Anthony Davis missing the rest of the season. Um, and just real quick on Giannis, like Giannis is amazing. Giannis has now been amazing for God. It's been like since 2016. God, he's 30 now, so it's been like 8 years of him just being amazing,
Yeah.
and he's just I don't know, like the numbers are just crazy. The numbers are always crazy with him. He's 31, 12, and 6 right now. Last year he was 30, 11.5 and 6. The year before that, it's 31, 12, and 6. Like this is just kind of his numbers now. It's 31, 12, and 6. And really the problem for Giannis though is that the Bucks are just like meh. And pretty much every year since they won the
Yeah.
championship, they've just kind of been meh. And they're like a mid-seeded East team that is likely going to go home in the second round. But
If not earlier.
honestly, I actually remember this now. I remember why I didn't vote for Giannis, and I put Luka ahead of Giannis. It wasn't because Luka had done it more recently. It's because the Bucks' last two playoff runs, Giannis has played a grand total of 3 games.
Yeah.
Like he missed last year completely, and the year before that, he only played 3 games in that series against the Heat that they lost. Uh, but like he wasn't that great in the 3 games that he did play, and that's why I kind of knocked him. Was like, you are amazing, but dude, you got to be available.
Yeah.
I got to see you when it matters.
Maybe I would say that the situation's marginally the better, if not the same, like roster wise for them than when we were having that discussion. But yeah, I still don't feel like the Bucks necessarily went the right route of like, let's just get depth on this roster. Uh I mean, they went out and they trade for like Kuzma.
Yeah, they traded Chris Middleton for Kyle Kuzma.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Kuzma has not been bad since he's been there, actually. But like, it just goes all the way back to when they won the championship. Is like they have Chris Middleton starts getting
Hmm.
hurt, like can't play very much. He even when he does play, he's not the same guy anymore. And
Yeah.
even before that, he was inconsistent. But at least
Yeah.
when he showed up, it could be really good. Um, and then like Drew Holiday, they trade Drew as part of that Dame deal, and it's like, okay, that's
Yeah.
our second best defensive player, and like our whole identity is that we have this awesome defensive guard, and then
Yeah.
Giannis, and now it's like, what do we have? We have like zero perimeter defense around Giannis, and it's
Yeah.
still kind of the problem there. But like the Bucks are a team where it's like if they lost in the first round, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd just be like, oh yeah, their perimeter defense sucks, and like Giannis can only do so much. And also if they are in the NBA finals, like if it's like, oh yeah, like Giannis just was steamrolling everybody and then Dame in the playoffs is like still a good thing. I would also just be like, oh yeah, like I like nothing would surprise me with them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean like with those two guys, the ceiling is still very much there. The problem is that with the roster built the way that it is very much up to those guys to entirely carry that load.
And that leaves us with number one on the list, the consensus number one player for the second year in a row. It is Nikola Jokic, Denver center. The, I mean, I think undisputed best player in the league right now. He's so Jokic is averaging 29, 13, and 10 right now. So he's averaging a triple double with a PER of 33. 33 player efficiency rating. Uh his last couple of years have been 31, 31.5, 32.8, 31.3 in this 5-year majestic run of his that we are on, of him basically being MVP every single year except for the year that they made it about things that weren't basketball and Embiid won. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just a fucking machine. Like he's just leading the league in every single advanced stat, box plus minus, VORP, win shares per 48, win shares, you know, offensive win shares, PER, offensive rating. Like his offensive rating is 135 this year. His
The
previous high is 134.
this motherfucker is not only averaging a 29-point triple double, but decided that this is also the year that he's going to take the most threes of his career and is shooting 45% on those threes.
It's honestly stupid, and he's scoring the most points per game of his career, which is, I mean, really probably due to the fact that he's shooting so well from three and shooting more than he ever has before.
hmm
But I brought up this point last year in NBA Top 30 when he was the number one player. There is no stat line ridiculous enough for me to not believe that Nikola Jokic put it up. Where if you're like, yeah, he had a 60, 40, and 20 last night, I would just be like, damn, that's awesome. There is no there's no number out there that you could tell me that I would be like mind blown. Or like at least the number has to be absolutely insane. But it's like, oh yeah, he put up like a 40, 20, 10. I'd just be like, yep. And they're like, oh, he put up a 50, 15, 15. I'd be like, yep.
Yeah,
Like there is no number. This is the best 5-year offensive stretch we have ever seen. Ever. Out of any player ever. And he's almost equally as good in the playoffs.
which is insane.
Yeah. Maybe the craziest thing about Jokic though is like I said, I firmly believe this is the best offensive stretch we've ever seen. Best 5-year offensive stretch ever. It also wouldn't shock me if he retired this summer or any summer. If he was just like, yeah, I'm done. Like height of his powers, 29 years old. He's just like, meh, I don't want to play anymore. That's it. And it somehow only makes him more alluring. Makes me only want to vote for him to be the number one player more because he's like doesn't care.
The guy just kind of wants to play basketball and take care of his horses. Like,
Yeah, he made Russell Westbrook a viable player again.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been like a renaissance for us.
Yeah, yeah. So that is it. NBA top 30. That is the lost top 10. Um, I was gonna ask you like who is not on the list that you think will be on the list next year, or like who is going to be the biggest riser, but I think we both agree that it's Cade.
Yeah.
Um, the only other guy I kind of thought of was Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., probably going to be Defensive Player of the Year this year.
hmm
And maybe like all NBA third team, something like that. So I think he probably pops up on here next year as well. But yeah, I think with the season that Cade has had so far, the impending Pistons playoff trip, um, that's almost essentially like locked in that they're not even going to be a play-in team,
Yeah, I mean it's like 90% odds for them to make the playoffs.
which is insane with where
Yeah.
we've been with the Pistons for so long now. They're as of recording, they're 32 and 26, and
Hmm.
they're 3.5 games up on the Magic for that 6th seed.
Yeah.
Who would they play right now? They'd play the Knicks.
Hmm.
Not a not a team I'm super scared of. The New York
No,
Knicks.
this is not how I expected them to look this year.
No. But I mean, if you're playing like the Knicks or the Bucks or the Pacers or like the three teams immediately ahead of them, I'm not saying I would pick the Pistons to win that series, but I would also not pick it to be like a short series.
Yeah. No,
So
I mean like I think the benefit of this squad that they have right now is that they don't even know to be scared. Like, you know, they're young, they're playing with a lot of confidence. They're playing well against good teams. Like they like there's no reason for them to walk into a series and not think that they have a chance to win it.
uh Zach LaVine, 42 points last night, hit 8 threes. Maybe he pops up on the list next year. Light the beam, baby. There's
The
part of me that's like, uh, I'm like not gonna vote for Fox next year because I hate him. And I'm just like, I opened my phone this morning when I woke up and saw the Kings won 130 to 88 last night, and I was like, holy shit! And then I opened it and saw Zach LaVine scored 42, and I'm like, what the beam? Let's go! We got our guys. And then like the other part of me is like, no, that was a really stupid trade, and I hate this front office. But I don't know, man. You open your phone and you see Zach LaVine scored 42, and you're just like, ah, yeah, let's go.
You know what game is tonight? It hasn't started yet. It'll be starting in like half hour.
Oh Lord, I did not realize that that was tonight.
Luca returns.
Ooh, well, it's
The
Mavericks.
reckoning.
Mavericks at Lakers starting in 30 minutes from recording. Oh man, how did I forget that that was tonight?
I don't know.
Oh man, it's on TNT. Oh, it looks like I'm staying up late tonight, Matt. It
Yep.
looks like I'm staying up late tonight, baby. Oh, okay. Well, over
What
under.
is yeah, what is your over under for Luca points?
Oh, I was thinking Luca total stats. Like if you add
Yeah.
points, rebounds, and assist.
Hmm.
And I'm saying 70. Like, what is that? 40, like maybe 70 is too high. I'm going on my DraftKings sports book right now, and there is a whole section dedicated to Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
So he's minus 115 to score 32 or more. Minus one. Can I just bet on him to have a triple double? Yeah, points, rebounds, and assist. 50 or more is minus 105. Oh, here it is. Double double minus 185. Triple double plus 320. He's fucking doing it.
Yeah.
He's doing that shit. I'm betting on a Luka triple double right now. Boom sauce. All right, that is it for us. As always, Foul Dog can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail, foul.sports@gmail.com, and you can find our videos on TikTok at foul.sports podcast. Did you say how many points you think Luka's going to score tonight?
I'm gonna say over 35.
Yeah, I just bet on a Luka triple double.
Yeah.
35-point triple double incoming, maybe worse. Um,
Yeah.
Next couple pods, we will be back next week with one more NBA pod. the week of March 10th. We're going to do an NFL free agency pod after the first couple of days of NFL free agency, especially because I'm super excited to see what my team does. And then after that, we're going to be jumping into March Madness for 3 weeks, followed by April, which is 5 straight NFL draft podcast. Some say that's our wheelhouse. But until next week, I will see you later, my friend.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
I'm out.
Robin.